Well, hello, Colleen. Nice,
Hello.
nice to have you. We are so excited to talk with you. So I'm going to introduce Colleen and then ask some questions. So here we go. So Colleen is a personal energy stylist and founder of Style Rituals. With over 20 years in fashion and wellness, she discovered that style is more than just clothing. It's energy, intuition, and self-care. Her journey began in New York City, where she realized that colors, accessories, and fashion choices could influence energy. She went on to study healing practices around the world and created style rituals to help people align their style with their energy. And today she's going to show us how to tap into personal power through fashion, your home, and beauty rituals. So I had the pleasure of interviewing and or just having a conversation with Colleen in January, and I was like glued to my screen listening to what she had to say because it's fascinating how she started her journey. So I just want to dive in. Um, Colleen, let me start off by asking you. So you worked as a designer and fashion stylist in New York City for 15 years. What
Yes.
what was that world like, and when did you realize you wanted to do something more intuitive and healing?
Well, that world is fun and fabulous and colorful and incredibly creative. And I can say that my journey into the healing world started probably in my late 20s around the time of our Saturn returns, which, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's when your life kind of gets turned upside down, and there's lots and lots of big guttural transformational changes that are happening. And mine happened to come in the form of my intuition. And within a couple weeks, I had all of my clairs turn on, which is being clairsentient, clairaudient, clairvoyant, and claircognizant, basically meaning that I started seeing ghosts and having visions and premonition dreams. And the real, excuse me, the real cherry on the top was having people on the subway come up to me telling me I was a healer and my whole life was about to change.
So crazy.
So
I mean, that must
crazy.
have been so scary. How did you reconcile that with your life at the time, with having voices and receiving these messages?
Well, the very first thing I did was cry in the corner. The second thing I did was try and run from whatever this was. And the more I ran, the more it chased me and the louder it got. And I have to say that that was probably, I mean, I was raised in like a strict Midwest Irish Catholic household. That has never really been my speed though. And I could say for the first time in my life, something that like, actually looked like prayer or like asking the universe for help or guidance was what happened next. And as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will show. And my first teacher came into my life at that time, and that kind of sent me on this wild journey of studying all these modalities and becoming a Reiki master and a crystals expert and all these other things that brought me to start style rituals.
So cool. And one thing I remember when we were talking is you mentioned asking yourself mental institution or psychic. Can
Yeah,
you walk us through that moment and please tell
sure.
us more because that was like hysterical, but also like I'm sure so scary at the time.
Oh, the dark comedy of my life. So what the very first thing, so I'm like, all this stuff is happening to me. I'm obviously not telling anyone, and uh, people need to understand this was a really long time ago. This is before like Facebook wasn't even exactly open to like people yet. It was just students. There's no Instagram, there's no TikTok, there's no hashtags, you're not Googling things. So like you couldn't be like, am I hearing voices? Am I crazy? Is there someone that can help me? Right. And like someone like a shaman or a healer or a psychic may show up and the response and you're like, oh, okay. None of that existed. And there wasn't really anyone I felt I could talk to about this. So I was at one of my clients, and uh, another consultant that was there, she just asked me, "Oh, and psychics?" And I said, I don't really know." And she said, "Well, I think you should go see my friend." And I said, "Well, who's that?" And she said, "Well, he's a psychic." And the first thing I thought was like, "Oh my God, she knows something's wrong with me." Just like thinking at home, like I didn't have an opinion on psychics. Like I just didn't care either way. And I thought, well, I feel really sick and out of sorts and ungrounded in all these ways I could describe now. A very like, fuck my life kind of moment. And I thought, maybe I should go see the psychic, because it's either I go to the psychic's office or I knock on the mental institution door at this point because I feel crazy.
Yeah.
And I went to see the psychic and, of course, was incredibly skeptical. I wouldn't give him my last name, my email. I, called him on the phone, all this stuff, right? And you couldn't Google people back then how you can now. So
Yeah.
this guy knew nothing about me. I went up the stairs. He opens the door and he just like locks eyes with me and he's like, "Oh, you're not crazy. You're psychic." And I was like, "What?"
Oh my
He said,
God.
"Yeah, are all these things happening?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, all those things are happening." And he's like, "Okay, come in, come in." And then proceeded to tell me, he said, he told me some books to read, gave me some instructions, told me I needed to find a mentor. I was like, "How, a mentor for what is this?" And he said, "You're going to leave fashion, leave New York, and move to California." And I told him, "No way. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to have to drag my dead body out of Manhattan." And here we are. I left fashion, kind of.
Yeah.
I did leave New York and I do live in LA. So
Crazy story.
crazy
Amazing.
story.
How did that lead, Colleen, how did that lead you to study energy medicine? I mean, it's such a like niche part, I think, of the world that you found yourself in. How did that happen?
Yeah. So after I go to the psychic's office, the next breadcrumb was, how do I find the mentor, right? For what is this?
Right.
And he just said to me, he's like, "Ask the universe." And I was like, "What?" So I did that. I said, "Universe, I need a mentor for whatever this is." And as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will show. Shortly after that, a girl introduced me to the woman that would become my mentor that I studied once a week privately with for 3 years. And after I had gotten so far with her, and at first we were talking a lot, and she was just kind of trying to help me like acclimate to what was happening to my body, right?
Yeah.
And how sensitive I was. For those that don't know, when you're kind of going through that transition, like the noises are louder, the lights are brighter, being around large amounts of people can sometimes be really difficult. And she was just kind of helping me walk through what it meant to be an empath in New York, working in the fashion industry, which that puts me around a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that was helpful. And then I noticed she stopped doing healings on me and giving so much instructions and started to teach me what she knew. And she kept saying, she's like, "I think you're going to do this for a living." And I was like, "No, no, I work in fashion. I'm just trying to make the voices go away."
Oh my gosh.
Well, the voices got louder. So study with her. And then she said I needed to start to go to a group school and learn with other people like me. And I ended up doing another 3 years at the Four Winds School of Energy Medicine and studying different energetic modalities from all over the world. So that's kind of how I got into this path. And I did that all in like silence and secrecy for 7 years. I told nobody,
Wow.
um, which was rough. And then I kind of like I had to like come out of the energetic closet and tell all of my friends, some colleagues, my parents, what had really been going on. But I studied my ass off, and I keep studying. I'm always in class because I think it's so important to keep learning. And that was maybe the very like building blocks of what helped me to get here.
And I think what bridges it also is the story you mentioned about reading a fashion magazine and somebody and literally like telling someone like what was going on with them through this magazine. And I think that helps
Yeah.
translate like how you got into like the closet, like people's closets in their homes.
Yeah, sure. I can share that. So I was getting near the end of the 3 years at the Forward School for Energy Medicine. And I was really excited about this class because this was the class that we were really going to learn about divination. For those that don't know what that means, you're using some kind of tool to prophesize or get information either for yourself or for others. So when people think about like tarot card readings, that's divination, or crystals or tea leaf, like those are forms of divination. So I was super excited about this class. I just felt really attracted to it. And I got there. I was at Omega taking the class, which is in upstate New York, outside of Manhattan, and was going really well. And then the teacher said, "Hey, tonight we're going to have a psychic fair, and we need you to come as your alter ego, and you'll do quick little readings for the other half of the room. And then you're going to switch and they'll read for you." And the idea, right, is like you need to learn how to read different people's energy, and you need to do it quickly, right? It's a skill that you have to harness and hone. So, um, all I heard was I got invited to a party. What was I going to wear? So I went back to my cabin and I'm like, okay, like, what's my alter ego? And, I'm looking, I'm like, do I have a caftan? I need a mystical scarf. Like, what do I have? And it was right before Fashion Week, and I had been traveling for like 6 weeks. And so I wasn't even going back to Brooklyn to my apartment. I was going straight to a hotel in Manhattan. So I had all my clothes for Fashion Week with me. So I have a bunch of fancy clothes. And I thought, well, that's an alter ego because everybody here knows me in, yoga pants, dirty top knot, no makeup. And I thought, okay, I'm a fashion psychic. Okay. So I had on full lame and stilettos and I put lashes on and blew my hair out. And I was like, okay, you look great. You look great. But like, what's your accessory that you're reading? And, I was like, yeah, I've tarot cards with me, or I could do crystals. And I was like, but that doesn't like go with the attire. So I was like, I need a fashion magazine. Now, the funny part of this is I'm in the middle of the woods, and I ran through the woods in my stilettos and went into the bookstore at Omega, and I was like, "Hi, hi, do you have a fashion magazine?" This guy, I mean, full judgment, like up and down, was like, "You are 90 minutes north of where you were supposed to be right now. You are not supposed to be here." And he's like, "No, I don't have that." And I said, "Okay, cool. How about a women's health?" No women's health. I said, "A pamphlet from Oprah or the Dalai Lama?" No, he has nothing for me. And I was just like, oh no. And then this girl taps me on the shoulder and she's like, "I overheard you." She said, "I'm a fashion photographer. I'm in from Australia for a breathwork class." And she said, "I have the Vogue September issue in my room. Do you want it?" And this was, of course, like, again, this is so long ago that people were still toting around fashion magazines in the paper form and reading them. I said, hell yeah. And I got this magazine and I ran into my class with my accessory, and I got there and I was like, okay, I need to like put together my reading space. And so I found a red yoga mat and two red yoga poofs, and I set myself up for red carpet readings.
Love it.
So I sat down, so everything's going swimmingly. And then, like, I don't know how to psychically read a fashion magazine. I don't know what I'm doing. So, fortunately, we had learned about bibliomancy, which is basically when you take a book and ask a question and open to a page, and you can like point to something and you'll get some kind of guidance from it, right? So I was like, okay, that must work with fashion magazines. So someone sat down in front of me and I said, okay, pick a page between 1 and 402. And she picked a page and I opened very specifically. I remember this. It was a Marc Jacobs bag ad, and there was a tall model naked behind like a big bag doing the moves. And I'm like looking at this and I'm looking at this very like um girl that like I just say might not really be into fashion
Yeah.
across from me. And I'm like, I don't know how this translates.
Yeah.
And I just was sitting there, and all of a sudden, all this information just started flooding down to me about her, which is claircognizance or just knowing. And I was like, oh, your whole therapy practice is about to change. And you're going to help people that are going through gender transformation. And and you're going to move and you're going to do this. And, you know, and she's just looking at me, pale, like, yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. How do you know that? And I could muster up. I was like, the Marc Jacobs bag ad told me so.
Wow.
So I ripped out and I handed it to her and I said, good luck on your journey and take this as a reminder of our time together.
Wow.
Which I
That's
don't
so
know if she was like
cool.
super into me because she was just like, I don't know about this. But that's kind of how I started. And I started to think about it and it was like working really well. And other people were coming over and like super into how I was doing things. And it was kind of different. And I thought, well, if I can divinate a fashion magazine, there's no reason I can't divinate a closet.
Right.
And that was right then and there where the idea for style rituals was born.
So cool. That is the best. When you told me that, I was like, and wasn't the model androgynous?
She was,
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
So
Yeah,
cool. Such a great story. So you say a closet is a living, breathing extension of ourselves. How do you discover the connection between fashion, energy, and healing through your closet?
sure. I mean, I think when you open someone's closet, you can learn everything about them. You're looking at the types of clothes that are in there, the colors. I mean, you know what they do for a living, you know where they go for fun, you know how they work out, you know what they wear on dates, like whatever is happening. And all those objects and possessions in the closet come with stories. And I, use my empathic nature and will run my hand across clothing like over the rail, and there'll be pieces that like my hand just lights up with like a heat in it, and I'll pull that out and I'll be like, hey, what's going on with this, right? And there's always a story with that one piece, right? It's the thing I couldn't let go. It's my ex-boyfriend's t-shirt. It's I had this job I loved 20 years ago and I can't get rid of this thing and I'm stuck where I am in work. And it's just wild how just like people, objects carry energy, and it's important to only keep in your closet what's helping you radiate now and what's going to help call in good things for the future.
That's amazing. I can't wait. We're going to get a little bit more into like some tips for people of how to start clearing things out of their home and things like
Yeah.
that. But feng shui is a hot topic, and there I know that some of the people on the call had some specific questions about it. So feng shui teaches that the layout of our home affects our energy. So what are some common mistakes people make in their space, would you say?
Oh gosh. Um, I would say on some really, let's do like three basic tips that everyone can achieve, like having a very cluttered doorway to your home. I mean, that's the mouth of chi or the energy that's coming in and out of your house. And
Okay.
you have, like, think about it, a dirty welcome mat or a dead plant, right? Those types of things are not calling in good energy. I'd also say something else I see with fireplaces, putting pictures like a big family photo above the fireplace is a huge no-no because it's like burning it.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, right. And I see someone's like, everybody's fighting in my house, and I like look up and there's like the family portraits above the fireplace. I'm like, okay, so we're gonna fix this right now.
Wow. Okay.
But like putting a mirror above the fireplace is a way better idea. Um, and then also I'd say having your bed and your desk in what's known as the command position. And the command position is when you can see the door, right? Like you don't want your desk, for example, like your desk here and your back right? And my back would be facing you. That's a huge no-no because that takes you out of your personal power in the
Right.
business world. And then for the bed, you also want your feet facing the door,
Yep.
but not aligned with the door. If it's aligned with the door, it's known as the coffin position,
Interesting.
which isn't great, right? But again, that's putting you while you're sleeping in the command position because you can see the exit.
Okay. Can you
Yeah.
talk more about what the command position does for us energetically?
Well, energetically, the command positions puts you in the commanding position,
Right.
right? Like you're filled with personal power. You have more strength. You might have more energy. You might not feel like run down. Sometimes I hear people even say stuff like, "I feel like someone's talking behind my back" or something. And I'm like, "Yeah, because they're looking at your back, right?"
Okay.
So, yeah. So you always want to be facing, seeing the exit.
Okay. That's really interesting. Um, okay. So now we want to talk a little bit about decluttering and an energetic home care essentially. So
Yeah.
how can decluttering be a form of self-care and emotional release? I mean, I know how.
Um,
How do you explain it?
I mean, letting go of things you don't need anymore because all items carry energies and memories to them. So you're you're like, let's say you got divorced and you're holding on to all the stuff that you have with your ex, right? The couch is there, the photos are still, the wedding photos are still out, like, right? Like what? And you're like, I can't get a date. And I'm like, well, maybe we need to put some of those things away or throw them out or burn them.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think it's really about like letting go of parts of your life that just aren't necessary, valid, not where you are anymore,
Yeah.
and really with great respect and reverence, being able to let that go.
What's the best way to get rid of things? Like, are there certain methods like you would, and this is just coming to the top of my head as a question, but like
Yeah,
certain things that you recommend burning versus just storing away versus throwing in the trash?
yeah. I, I have a big long process around this, but I would say like papers, for example, that you don't need anymore. Like, okay, here's something like you don't keep your taxes over 7 years. If you have taxes from like 25 years ago, like, why do you have those?
Yeah.
That's old money energy, right? That's the money you made 25 years ago is still sitting in your garage. And you're like,
Yeah.
why can't I make more money?
Interesting.
Right.
Does that
So
really does that really block us? Like that's so that's
yeah.
like that's so fascinating to me that something that's just like subconsciously like sitting somewhere that you don't really think about is it blocking us from like abundance, you know?
It's totally can be blocking us from abundance, from the relationships we're trying to call into our lives, the changes we're trying to make. Really letting go of the past and or letting go of things that just aren't for you anymore is incredibly important. And to your point, lighting stuff on fire, giving stuff to a secondhand store or the Goodwill or someone that actually recycles different garments is a great idea.
Yeah.
Or even, sometimes like it's okay to like gift things to a friend, right? That's
Yeah.
not it's not always a no-no. It's not always the right answer either. But I think that there's, a clothing swap or something like that you do with your
Yeah.
girlfriends. Like it really just depends on the situation. But I think first and foremost, acknowledging that this is a thing is the first thing you need to do, right? If you're kind of a hoarder, or have, a lot of people are like very neat in their home and their closets will be wild. That, it's like any addiction, you need to first admit you have a problem and then start to address it.
Somebody just said, can gifting something that carries bad energy be transferred to the recipient?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. So for me, like for example, if I was going to gift this crystal to someone, because I'm like, you know what, I love this thing. it's just not for me anymore. And I really feel like it needs to go to my friend over there, right?
Yeah.
They're working on something that I worked on when I used this crystal, right? I would definitely take the proper protocol and physically and energetically clear this crystal.
Okay.
I would, you know, take my energy off the crystal and, you know, give it well wishes to the person that it's going to.
Yeah. That's good advice. So, what would you say? Like, my mom, for example, is a clutter bug. She we just, my sister and I just spent like an entire weekend going through all of her stuff and had tons of trash bags to get rid of things. I mean, she was
Yeah.
keeping clothes that were fitting her when she was, 10 pounds heavier. And she was like, should I keep it just in case I gain weight again? And I'm like, no,
No.
get rid of it. Um, but what would you say? And even after we clear out clutter, it just keeps coming back. So like, what's the first step for someone is feeling overwhelmed, like my mom, for example, by clutter? What is the first step that they could start taking, would you say?
If they're trying to like invite objects back into their house.
If they want to just clear, like 3 tips to just start clearing it out, right? Like just
Oh God.
start
I
decluttering. Like
mean,
where do you start if you're just so overwhelmed by it?
yeah,
What's
I
the most
mean,
important space I would say in your home to start with? That's a good question.
yeah, I mean, I think the, you know, the nucleus of any home is the bedroom, right? We spend so much time there. I'd also say on a case by case basis, so, you know, sometimes people intuitively know they're like, this feels icky in
Yeah.
here, or like I feel anxious when I'm in this room.
Yeah.
Then you know that's where to start. And then you also think about like I was saying, like some people have like incredibly like immaculate homes and their closets will be bananas on the inside, or maybe you have immaculate homes and closets, but the garage is like wildly messy. You know where to start,
Right. Right.
right? Start where the like the clutter hurricane is.
Right.
Because some people tend to like put it in one place.
Yeah. Somebody just said they've heard that it's better to start with things that are out in the open. I don't know that I
That's fair.
agree with that, but I don't know, maybe.
I mean, some of this is so personal in a
Yeah.
case by case basis, and sometimes people know, right? Like, for example, someone's like, "I just got a divorce. I need to redo my bedroom and get stuff out of there." Yes, right?
Okay.
Or somebody lost a lot of weight and they've completely changed their diet. I'm going to be like, "Why don't we go over to the kitchen and get all the garbage food out of there?"
Yeah,
Right? This is very, very situational.
totally. That's so true. Okay. Is it possible to clear a space without physically decluttering? And how does energetic clearing factor into that?
I mean, it is possible to clear a space without decluttering, but you know, they're partners. They go hand in hand, right? You need to do both.
Yeah.
I
So,
can do an energy clearing on someone's home, but they're
yeah,
like, this problem hasn't stopped. And I'm like, well, we haven't addressed the, you know, the giant pile of clothes in the corner that's been there for 6 months
we're
and you
totally,
don't want to move it.
totally. So, okay. How does feng shui apply to our closets? And are there specific changes people can make to create better energy flow?
Sure. So I'd say within the closet, something I like to do is I use crystals in the closet. Uh, so depending on the genre of clothing, I'll put a different crystal with it. And I'd also say that's the first thing you need to do, right? Like, uh, chaos is not energetically healthy in a closet. So if you can get your clothes organized by genre, and then by color, right? And then addressing the shoe issue. Like I'm a frequent flyer at the Container Store. You know, having all your shoes in like the same clear boxes so you can actually see things and getting rid of the boxes. I'd say that's something else. Like, so, you know, creating a beautiful space is the first thing. I'd say even before, you know, if you're really like, I can't throw anything out, I'm like, okay, let's at least get it organized and like be able to look at what we have.
Sure.
And then maybe we can start to edit if people are feeling uncomfortable with editing.
Right. Okay. I like that. Um, so what are your favorite methods for energetically clearing a space, whether it's sage or sound or crystals?
Sure. I use all letter D, all of the above. So using some type of burnable herb and you know, I know people are so familiar with sage and Palo Santo. There's copal, there's cedar, there's so many other herbs that you can work with. And then also using sound like a tuning fork or sound bowl is also super helpful.
Hmm. I didn't know that you could
Yeah.
clear a space with a sound bowl, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so cool. How can you give us, for people who aren't familiar with clearing a space with sage and crystals, can you give like a beginner's lesson in like a short 1 minute intro?
Sure. So um the the burnable herb, we'll just say sage for the sake of this conversation. You don't, I would tell you, don't use with purpose. So if you have a giant space, use the whole sage stick. If you are
Hmm.
clearing, you have a 400 square foot studio apartment, get a little sage stick and like pull a sprig off or two sprigs. Like you don't
Oh,
want to waste the herb and respect the herb and leave it for next time. Don't waste. You can go ahead and light that on fire, and you want to make sure the doors or windows are open, and you want to say something like any energy that is not mine or of my highest and greatest good, get out, leave through the front door. Because you have to think about this the same way. Like, imagine you have all the doors and windows shut and you're sweeping and it's right, it's the same way. It's like energetic dust. You need the door open to like
yeah.
let the dust out.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's like a hot tip that's incredibly important, is
Yeah.
to have an exit strategy for the unwanted energy. And then crystals I use in a different way. I grid people's homes with crystals a lot to kind of balance the energy. But as far as clearing, there's certain crystals you can work with to keep the energy clear within a space. Like um, amethyst clusters are great to keep by the front door because it's great to ward off energy vampires. Anybody that's ever been in a crystal store or a mystical shop, there's always those like giant purple geodes at the front door. There's a
Yep.
reason for that. Like that's what they're doing.
Never knew that.
So so that can kind of help to like, you know, ward things off, or and kind of they kind of like suck it away, right?
And then sound for somebody like me who I've never used sound to clear. What is that something
Yeah.
that a beginner can do?
So I'd say, even from a like price and storage perspective, I'd go with a tuning fork over a sound bowl because it's those are big, heavy, and expensive and fragile.
Yeah.
So getting a tiny little tuning fork, which you'll hit off of a crystal. They normally come with a clear quartz crystal that you can kind of like bang the tuning fork on. And you literally just bang it on the crystal and walk around the space. And you're going to do the same thing and say some kind of incantation, any energy that is not mine, or maybe you're mentioning someone's energy, right? Again, there's someone a neighbor, right? That you're just like, ugh, why do I feel them in here? Or like my ex,
Yeah.
right? Somebody, it might be somebody,
Yeah.
or it can also be anybody. Like for example, I don't always think that energy clearing in a space is about a home having bad energy. For example, say you had a holiday party with like all of your favorite people in the whole world and you all had the best time ever, but their energy does not belong in your space. That's your space. So the next day, I would go around with one of the tools that we just talked about and usher their energy back out, that it can go back to them because it just doesn't belong in your home.
And what kind of crystal do you use or do you recommend to use for the sound clearing?
Oh, well, do you mean
Oh, the
the
tuning fork.
crystal bowls? Oh, sure. So, you want to use a clear quartz crystal because clear quartz is really hard. So you're not going to crush the crystal by banging a metal tuning fork on it. And a lot of times, they come in kits now that like a clear quartz crystal will come with the tuning fork, so you're already ready to go.
Perfect. I can't wait to get started. Okay. Can you tell me, how do the fabrics we wear influence our personal energy? And are there any materials you recommend embracing or avoiding?
Sure. This is a really interesting conversation right now. I don't know if you've seen things going around about like I mean they're targeting Lululemon
Yep.
with having like BPA's and other chemicals in
Yep.
their yoga pants, and all of that's our skin is our greatest organ, and all of that like seeping into the body. So I think that that's a really interesting thing to think about right now about synthetic fabrics. Like it's a it's something to like ask yourself about. There are meters that have measured the vibration of clothing, like cotton, linen, silk, natural fibers, right? Because it's of the earth, always come up having the highest frequency, for example.
Mhm. So I want to tie that into Mama Soul because we're
Okay.
very aligned there because we use very sustainable materials. So we're using either
Yeah.
glass and our tube is made of sugar cane. So we're also aligned there in regards to just not using items with that, produce microplastics into the
Yeah.
formula or onto our skin. So I really like that. Okay. So when we talked before, we talked about a beauty altar. How does it
Mm.
contribute to our energetic hygiene?
Okay. I mean, you can build an altar to anything first and foremost. I love altars so much. They're tiny vortexes of energy to something, right? So if you're trying to call more beauty into your life, so who are we honoring? We're honoring the planet Venus, the goddess Lakshmi, right? Like things that stand for beauty, pleasure, love, abundance, right? All those like super juicy things that make us smile. So I would tell you, some people take a beauty altar very literally and might put it where they put their makeup on, right? They've got crystals there, they've got flowers, they've got vision boards, you know, whatever you want on your altar is like it's a personal thing. Um, there also might you can put a beauty altar out in your backyard if you have a garden or an area of flowers that you really love and you want to put a statue of Lakshmi and maybe some crystals out there. So there's no right or wrong way to build an altar, but I think that you want to do it with intention and you want to think about when I think about beauty, like what are the things I'm trying to call in right now. It could literally be something physical, like I want more muscle tone and I'm like looking for a new haircut.
Yeah,
But it could also be something greater, like I'm looking for to look at myself in a more beautiful way and calling in self love.
I love that. That's really nice. And I know you have like and we can talk about this later, but I know you have like a guide to really setting something like this up and crystals, and you have a lot more information that we can talk about for anybody who wants to, learn more about that.
Absolutely.
So I know that especially I know Jessica, for example, she had said something about, wanting to know more. She wants to sell her home. She's buying her home. She wanted to learn more about styling, and feng shui. What's like one small change that she could make today to help bring in that buyer to her home?
Oh gosh, so interesting. Um, well, say that there might I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of like I think the home is such a piece of who we are that it could be, and maybe I'm just kind of like, sorry, I think I'm just kind of tapping into Jessica personally.
Yeah.
Sorry. I can't help it.
Oh,
But like sorry, she's really connected to her house. And she actually, it's like you would need to write a letter to your house, like to say goodbye to it and like who you'd want to come in because you'd want like the right person or family to take over the space. And I actually kind of feel that that's the piece around that is to like honoring the house, saying goodbye to the house, wanting whatever lovely person or people's to come in and like take ownership of the house.
Okay. I have a question actually beyond that. So
Sure.
our house, we have a beautiful house. I love our house. I have two daughters who are teenagers who share a room, and so we just need more space. We've outgrown our house. And so,
Yeah,
not at all, I have no concern about selling our house. I feel like our house will sell like in the first week because it's
yeah,
beautiful,
yeah,
the area and everything. But I've been focused on, or my husband and I have been focused on finding the right house because we're very specific.
yeah.
So, I mean, I planted a jade plant by my front door. Like I'm like very focused on
Yep,
abundance. Um,
yep.
if there's anything about that.
Yeah, okay. So I would say in that case, right, because altars are vortexes of energy that we create to something. Have a house altar or moving altar or whatever you want to title it, right? And you have things that you see, whether it's like the door knocker you want, or the address, or the street you want to live on, or the neighborhood. Like print a map, like putting pictures on there. You found some picture of like, girls in separate bedrooms, right? You want them to have their space. List all the things that you want on there. Whatever you need to do. Put a new set of keys on there that aren't cut yet, right? It's the new keys to the space, right? All these things that are kind of brand new symbols of the space. You're going to put paint color up, right? And it might be really different than what you have right now.
Okay.
That's really
Yeah.
cool. We're gonna ask some more questions in a minute. But so how do you recommend that people maintain a clutter-free and energetically balanced home? How do you keep it? How do you make it stay? It's so
How
hard.
do you make It's so hard. I think that, look, I'm a Virgo. I love a calendar reminder.
Oh,
I
that's
would tell
cool.
you to find a time once a week that you've got you need 15 minutes or an hour or whatever it is
Great
to
idea.
actually go around and put everything away. But like do it in a time of the day and the right day of the week that like is actually feasible to do. Like Monday morning or Friday night sounds terrible, right? Like you need to find the right time of the week to actually clear the house. And don't do it tired, do it in joy, right? Like you want to actually, like, you're like, thank you, house, thank you for holding me, like I'm going to clean you up and make you nice again, right? Like like our closets, our houses are these living, breathing organisms that we need to maintain a relationship with.
Colleen, you're crushing every question, and I'm so appreciative of it. Okay. So last question, and then there's a couple of questions that some of the people who signed up for, that even some that couldn't make it. So how has this work transformed your own life, and what do you hope people take away from it?
I mean, this work has utterly transformed my life, and I feel incredibly grateful that I get to mix my past life with my current life, and bringing all these skills together and to help people make huge transformations in their lives. Like that's
Yeah.
the joy.
Yeah. First of all, just you talking to Jessica and tuning in like that, it's making me want to get my session in right now with you. It's so exciting. Okay.
Sorry, Jessica, I couldn't help it. It was like
No, I love that. I love it. Okay. So, okay. Somebody said well, you kind of just answered it. Somebody said any tips for staying on top of decluttering with a busy lifestyle. That is such a great idea, is to put it on a calendar and just get that marked in. Is there anything else you want to add?
you schedule business meetings, you
Yeah,
schedule time with friends. Why wouldn't you schedule time to like clean and do laundry and all the things?
I love it. Okay. Where do you suggest purchasing and acquiring crystals from, and how do you suggest cleansing after absorbing so much energy?
Sure. So, I mean, I kind of think sometimes like you don't pick the crystal picks you. So there are so many resources. Whether if you're a very tactile person, I suggest finding a local crystal store in your city. Etsy is also an incredible resource for crystals. So there's nowhere one place I can name because everybody has different crystals.
Yeah.
So that that it's a wild world of like what you find where you find it, and if it has the right energy. But when you do bring crystal into the house, yes, absolutely clean it, and also leave the mind to actually get into someone's house when it's changed hands 5 to 7 times. So you can use the same tools. You can clear your crystals with sound vibration. Hit a tuning fork near the crystal. You can use something like sage, and you can actually use crystals to clear crystals. Let me just grab this here.
Okay.
Um, okay, so this is called selenite, and selenite is a salt-based crystal. So it has purification capabilities. So what you'd actually want to do, and you can do this with jewelry too, is you can use this crystal and like, let's just say like, oh, I bought this crystal and it's for me or it's a gift, whatever, right? You can lay this on the crystal and leave it there for 24 hours. And this is actually going to absorb any energetic residue that shouldn't be there. And it's as simple as that.
I
Selenite's
love
also
that.
another great crystal to keep in the home. I would tell you, like, my hot tip with selenite is you want to place it where you see dust bunnies in your home, meaning under the couch, under the bed, the corners of the room, storage units, corners of the closet, right? Because this is kind of like the energetic air purifier. So it's constantly like sucking and renewing. So it's pulling out all the impurities and taking it away from whatever it's near.
I love that. I've never, I haven't always been into crystals. I didn't really get them. And now recently
Yeah.
I'm very much into them and you're making me really into them now. I'm like really excited.
Uh-oh.
So, one thing, so we, just so everybody knows, we are doing a little bit of a giveaway and we have one more question before we do that, but it involves crystals. So with Colleen and Mama Soul. So the last question that somebody had was, although I have a tender feminine side and I tend to be heavy in my masculine in many situations, how can I begin to intentionally find balance between the two? Maybe crystals can be a part of this answer.
Sure, crystals could be part of the answer. I think working maybe with crystals that have more of a feminine vibration. So, for example, like rose quartz is a great one, which is the stone for self-love. And I think also like chrysocolla, it's kind of traditionally it's like stone of the goddess or stone of like high feminine energy. Moonstone's also kind of like that. So finding crystals that are like speaking to the feminine. Carnelian could be really good. That has to do with creativity. It's also a crystal of the womb. So those would be maybe some first examples I'd give.
Yeah. And if it wasn't, and just Christina, who's on the call, that was her question. If there's any other tips that don't involve crystals, I feel free to chime in.
I think about when someone's like, I want to get in my feminine,
Yeah.
I would say that like, when you think about feminine acts or feminine archetypes, you think about being in the flow, you think about dreaming, you think about being soft, you think about moving slower, you think about wearing flowing fabrics, you think
Mm-hmm.
about certain colors, right? So I'd say that, what are some of those things that you could start to intentionally put on your body, put in your home, embrace as an activity. For example, like kickboxing is an incredibly, archetypically masculine uh, activity to do, right? Swimming is incredibly feminine. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're like, I need to switch up my workout routine and do a much or yin yoga or right. There's like so many things, and you look at it, you can tell whether something has a archetypically feminine or masculine vibration to it. Bringing flowers into the house, right? That would be a very feminine thing to do. Like go to the farmer's market on Sunday morning and buy yourself beautiful flowers and take the time to come home and have a coffee and arrange them, right? Like that's an
I
incredibly
love that.
um, little like self-care thing you could do once a month or something like that.
I too, I actually, that's a great question that Christina asked because I personally have the same struggle where
Yeah.
I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, and which is very masculine in our world. And so I am very much like, get it done, get it done, get it done. And I'm always in this like business masculine mode. And I really do struggle as well getting into my feminine. Those are such good tips. Thank you so much. I'm going to
My
start.
pleasure.
I want to start like even doing more than that, but I love those big first tips that we can start incorporating into our life. Okay. So now is the fun part. We get to do a giveaway. So everybody is going to get are we in a little raffle? I'm going to pick out a name and somebody's going to get Colleen, do you want to talk about what they'll get? It's the guide and then they get crystals.
Yeah, they'll get an energy guide, and then also my book Crystal RX, and whoever's name is it, I'll sign it. And then also I'm going to give a little Style Rituals crystal bag with some of the must-have crystals in it that you need for any occasion, and I'll send that to your home.
Okay. I'm going to pick, and then and somebody else is going to get a Mama Soul item as well, that they can get. So there's two winners. Okay. Okay. So Christina, you are getting Mama Soul. And Jessica, you are getting Colleen's book on crystals. Okay, awesome. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we have your emails. We'll reach out to you, and you'll get to Colleen will get your mailing address and send you the crystals and the book. And then Christina, we know each other. You'll get to pick a Mama Soul item that you would like. So anyway, Colleen, this was amazing. I honestly, this could go on for another hour, at least for me. So thank you so much. You answered the questions so amazing, and I can't wait to implement all of this into my life. So
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
thank you guys. If anybody has any questions, I'm going to be sending an email to everybody, and then you can always just follow up with anything. Oh, thanks, Christina. Okay. Bye, guys.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Thank you.